Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education University, and I'm your host, Tim Bocats. We had the Now conference last week, and as always, it was amazing. Some great hands-on presentations about art making. We had some wonderful live discussions about art history and classroom management and why you need to rest. And we had, all sorts of great presentations about a wide variety of topics, whether it was making zines or how to do more effective assessments or even just what you need to know about NFTs. And there's a lot of wonderful stuff there. But one of our most popular, most talked about presentations was Khadijah Latimer's presentation about planning a lesson with Procreate. And, it was awesome because it's Khadijah, but, people also love the lesson she showed. It was simple. It was very easy to get into. It was kind of showing how Procreate is a really easy app for kids to work with. And, let's be honest, there was some buzz from the giveaway as well. Procreate gave away an iPad mini, which was loaded with the Procreate app and an Apple Pencil to get the art making started. So that was a huge giveaway, and we'll just say our winner was very excited. But along with all of the excitement about that presentation came a lot of questions about Procreate, about using that app. So I wanted to dive into the discussion about Procreate a little more today. And I thought it would be great to hear from someone behind the scenes. The learning coordinator from Procreate, Lauren Yates-Jones, is here to talk to us today. So let's welcome her on now. Lauren Yates-Jones is joining me now. How are you today?
I'm really well, thanks, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing very well also. I think we have a lot of cool stuff to talk about. Procreate was kind of the talk of the conference last week. So it's good to have somebody here. But before we dive into everything that you do, can you just give us a quick introduction, who you are and what you do? Anything else you want to tell us about yourself?
Totally. My name's Lauren, but the team call me LJ, which you're very welcome to do as well. I'm an illustrator, a graphic designer, and I've got a background working with young people in a whole range of settings. But my role at Procreate is to be their learning coordinator, which is a really fun gig. And you can probably hear from my accent that we're not based in the US. We're an Australian company. So I'm calling Tim from the beautiful island of Lutruwita, or Tasmania, which is an island state south of mainland Australia. And it's 27 degrees here today, so it's like pretty warm. That's pretty much where we're at. I think it's one of the best places in the world to do the best creative work of your life. So we're very blessed to be here.
That's fantastic. You describe it so nicely.
Definitely come visit, Tim.
Yes. Well, I think you put that invitation out to me before when we were talking about things. Like, really, really kind of piques my interest. It definitely sounds like a place I need to go. But I want to talk about just sort of the company that you work for. The company that makes Procreate is called Savage Interactive. Can you tell us a little bit about the company, maybe like how you got started there, a little bit more about your role and what you do, and just kind of what it's like to work there?
Yeah, totally. So at Savage, we make exceptional creative tools for creative people. That's what we're in the business of doing. That's what we arrive at work ready and raring to go, ready to do. But what that means in reality is that we're a very diverse group of people. There's so many different skills in the building. We've got software engineers, we've got testers, we've got designers, writers, content creators, artists, support folks, people who are working on our engagement on social media. It's everything in one spot, which means that it's very dynamic, it's very fun, and there's never a dull day. It's the most kind of creatively charged workplace I've ever been in. And it's a real privilege because there's a lot of trust within that team too, to do, like I said before, the best work of your life, right? And to create a space to take creative risks. So it's a great place to work in that sense. My role among it is as learning coordinator is really to look at how we can help people to use Procreate to unleash their creativity right throughout their creative journey. So from our tiny tot artists that we love and honor in their kind of elementary school selves, right the way through to our kind of industry level professionals looking at doing professional development. So that's my role, and that's why I love it. It's got so much scope. But the biggest focus at the moment for our education team is all of the ways that we can use Procreate to aid learning in schools and universities and in those kind of formal learning settings, to unleash creativity right across the curriculum. And so we know how special that art room is, and then we also know, and I know a lot of your listeners will know, that often when kids leave the art room, that's kind of where that stops. So we're looking at going, how can we use what we've made to help kind of disseminate the magic of the art room into the rest of schooling. So that's a little bit about what I'm there to do and here to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'll just say it sounds like a spectacular place to work, just being around all those creatives all the time. And then you mentioned the idea of bringing Procreate to, education. And I think just working with you over the past few months, toward the Now conference and presentation there, it's really opened my eyes up to a lot of different opportunities, a lot of things that Procreate can do. But I guess for people who maybe aren't as familiar with the app, they aren't as familiar with Procreate, can you tell us about it just really quickly, like just elevator pitch for, maybe why people should use the app either for themselves as artists or for their students in art class or in the classroom?
Procreate is the iPad's most powerful digital art app. So we like to think of it as a complete creative art studio that you can take anywhere with you. So people use it as a sketchbook, and they create expressive sketches, really rich, traditional looking paintings or kind of more graphic illustrations. The scope for animations, 3D painting, like the scope for what you make is fairly limitless in that sense, in terms of, just to your creative style, I suppose. But the thing that makes it different for us is that it's made for artists by artists. And for us, there's this inherent understanding that we never let the tools get in the way of our creative process. And so right? It's a fairly strange thing for software to say, being like, oh, we actually would rather not think about that when we're making when we're making art. But that's the experience of being an artist, right? You want to become immersed. So that's why Procreate's user interface is so minimal and yet so fully featured, right? It's delightfully natural to use. And that's something that we talk about as kind of a benchmark for success in development. I hear the engineers all the time going is this delightful yet? Like, have we made it delightful to use? Does it feel good?
It's a great word.
Right. It's the best thing ever. To have that as the benchmark for experience. And so I think that's our main point of difference. It also means that we've got something that's intuitive and yet extremely powerful and not oversimplified. It's simple but not simplistic, if that makes sense. So yes. I think that's a part of the reason that it lends itself so well to being used in the context of education. It means that students can have in their hands the same tools as professionals at Netflix, Disney, Pixar, DC, whatever. Because the experience is kind of at this benchmark of delight and intuition. So, digital art studio on the go. I'd say for art teachers that are used to being in the traditional art room, probably involves a lot less cleaning up. There's a lot less brush washing and stuff like that involved. But another important thing, which isn't necessarily an elevator pitch for Procreate, but just a little bit about us and our ethos, is that we're not here to say put down your paintbrushes by any means. We have great respect and reverence, again, to use that word, for traditional art, and we love like making things with clay, and some of us are woodworkers, and so it's very much one of the tools that we suggest people having in their tool belt. We're not kind of here to suggest to chuck out the baby with the bathwater.
Right. More of an
Yeah,
additional tool rather than the only tool. So
yeah, totally.
that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I want to ask you for people who are just like getting into Procreate, just getting started with things, or maybe just getting students started with things, I should say. Like, where can they begin in the app? Like, what are some of the best tools or best ideas to begin with, or just like where would you suggest they start?
It's a really good question. I think when I'm using Procreate with people for the first time, regardless of who they are, I just suggest we just have a play and sort of forget about learning outcomes for a second, and like we just have a play. And I think the best way to do that, if you have access to an Apple Pencil, is to grab one. They're excellent. And just have a play with all of the brushes in the brush library, and like put like play with pressure, like push hard and then draw really softly, and tilt the pencil and draw fast and draw slow, and just feel how the brushes respond in such an organic way. It's my favorite thing to do with particularly drawing teachers who are like really rightly in love with their kind of graphite setup. I've got these beautiful long boxes. It's for me to just go, just try this. And they're like, you can see them become a little like emboldened and start to push harder and all of this stuff, because that's when the magic happens. So that's my very first piece of advice, is have a play and just see what the brushes can do. Sort of separate to that, once we've made it past playing and we want a bit of structure, there's a few things. We've created a whole series of free learning resources on our education website, which I imagine, can we link to that in the show notes?
Absolutely. We'll put that in the show notes.
Great. Well, let's do that. We can link to it in the show notes. And those are designed for beginners and people right at the beginning of their digital art journey. So not just how to use Procreate, but how do we understand really key fundamental digital art concepts such as layers? Like, what is that? How do we understand masks? So it's both teaching the software and these kind of art principles that we have. We're also in that pool of resources on that website, we also have what we call lesson ideas. We're intentionally not calling them lesson plans because we want people to take them and adapt them and use them as springboards for the curriculum. But they really walk through a whole bunch of activities and lessons that you can do with your students in a very, very, very step-by-step way. There's screenshots, there's arrows, there's everything you need to sort of just go through it at your own pace and then think about how it might integrate. The other thing that our community has developed is just this insane monolith of online resources in terms of like videos and tutorials and all of that stuff. And that can be a little bit overwhelming to sort of work out what is the right place to start. I suggest talking to Lisa Bardot and jumping on her YouTube channel. She's got a Procreate for Beginners, and that walks through everything at a really nice pace. Her name is Bardot Brush, but Bardot is spelled Bardot. That's a really good kind of walkthrough if you're more of a doer when you're learning and you'd prefer not to be reading things. Yeah. And then the other that I'm sure people have seen around if you've looked for Procreate tutorials for more than 2 seconds is Art with Flow, and she does some really excellent step-by-steps too. And I think that both of those resources are just very, very excellent for getting a good cross-section of everything that the app can do. And then you can take it with your own kind of artistic development from there, as can your students. Particularly for online learning, those two are quite good too.
Okay. That sounds good. That's a lot of good resources. Like you said, we'll make sure we link to all those. Yeah,
I just rattled them off, but yeah, we can link to
No, go for it.
We can link to them. No, we can link to them. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. I also wanted to ask, because like I'm on the beginning spectrum, like I'm slow to get into more digital art things. But I want to ask for teachers who have been doing this for a while. You said that Procreate is, industry level professionals. It is industry standard in a lot of cases. What about those teachers who have a lot more experience? They've done a lot of art on Procreate. Like, do you have some advanced features that you love to share, or other favorite things that you would suggest that teachers learn about or explore in the app?
Mm, that's a really good question too. I think that I tend to not think of the features in the app as more or less advanced, because the beauty of Procreate is that it can kind of grow with your skill level, right? It might be
Mm-hmm.
just about finding a more sophisticated way to use the same set of tools as
Yeah.
a student's art making matures. But in terms of more advanced resources, there are a few kind of more in-depth, more technical resources that we've developed, one of which is our handbook, which is kind of the full-blown user manual, holy grail on
Okay.
everything that is in there. We spend a lot of time reading it and making sure everything that you could think of is in there. And that's a really good place if you are wanting your students, to understand what is happening when they're making art, when you want them to sort of like own that process a little bit more and
Yep.
be able to
Yep.
articulate why they're doing things and what's happening when they do stuff, rather than like, oh, this looks cool when I slide this thing. What's
Yeah.
actually happening? And I think that's a really great thing that I've used with kind of high school students. It's great to see them starting to understand like color theory in the digital space, for example. The other really excellent resource that my colleague Will puts together are our Learn to Procreate videos on YouTube.
Okay.
And those are technical walkthroughs of different parts of the app, and that's feature based. So if you were going, oh, like I've created a rainbow brush in the brush studio, for example,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not really sure, like I want to make something that feels like paint, and you want to have a deep understanding of how the brush studio works. Will's unpacked a full, like, so many features in Procreate in a
Okay.
really
Okay.
deep and comprehensive way. So I'd suggest head to the YouTube channel for that one.
Okay, sounds good. Thank
Mm.
you for that. And then I guess I wanted to circle back around. We talked at the beginning about Procreate being in the education space, trying to make an impact there. So can you talk? I think, let me step back a second. I think a lot of teachers are excited to, find out what you have to offer and what's out there from Procreate. So can you talk about just, the kinds of things that Procreate does to help educators, and I guess why you've made it a priority at your company?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, there's a few things in that. I think the first thing is, thanks for calling us a big player. That's really generous and kind. I think for me, I try not to think about that part of it too much, because you sort of lose your head in the clouds a bit. But we certainly do feel the responsibility of having something that we've made in the hands of so many people, and it has been just so overwhelmingly exciting and touching to see it be picked up with such enthusiasm in the education space. So
Yeah.
that's been really exciting to see, and we're super thankful for that part of it. As far as why it's a priority at our company, that's probably twofold. I think the first part being quite closely linked to the experience that a lot of us had in school, which I touched on a little bit before in terms of
Yeah.
creativity outside the art room. But I think for a lot of us, like, quite kind of nerdy, right? Like, we're like very engaged with learning. Like, there's no qualms or fear of the idea of learning. It was just really always about the how. And from
Right.
speaking to a lot of my peers here, it's this like, what happens to creative kids in school? Like, you leave the art room and someone gives you a worksheet, fill the blank,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like complete the sentence, and you just have to swap into this alternative mode of learning that switches off this part of your brain that you've just been fostering. And so I think for
Right.
us, it was this part of the reason it's a priority was that we're like, we have something to do that we can help here. The other reason that it's become a focus for us is that we have this uh, kind of mantra, I suppose. I was trying to think of the right word. Vision sounds a bit like, you know, wishy-washy, but it's something we say to one another,
Right.
that art is for everyone, right? Like that's something that
Mm-hmm.
we said to one another throughout the release of 5.2 that we've been working on over these last 12 months. And it's something that's sort of one of our guiding principles, I suppose. And we've made something that a 4-year-old can pick up and use with like very little instruction.
Right.
and
Right.
and yet we weren't making it for them at the time. But if art is for everyone, like let's give it to the kids too. What happens when we give this to them? Like that's when magic happens. So I think, and that was something that we sort of stumbled upon, I could say. Like I remember the team saying, prior to my time, saying that they were at an art convention and they had Procreate projected up on this massive screen,
Mm-hmm.
and they looked over and they saw this truck or a car being drawn on the screen, and previously had been like these kind of brilliant artists coming along
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
painting for people, and they're like, who's drawing a truck? And then they see this tiny little kid, right, and they say to their mom, like, oh, do you, like, has he had a go at this at home? And she's like, he's never used anything like this in his life. And
Oh,
I
I
think
love
that was
it.
a really big moment for us, going, oh, okay, like this
Yeah.
is a little bit has a much wider application in this space with young people
Mm-hmm.
than what we'd previously thought. Let's give it to them and see what happens. So
Oh,
that's probably why a bit of a context onto why it's a priority for us. In terms of what we're doing for teachers, there's a few things. So a part of it is those resources that I mentioned before on our education
mm-hmm.
website. Spent a
Yep.
lot of time putting those together, and they're constantly coming out. It's not something we're sort of dropped and walked away from. We're working on them all the time. Another thing is that we've got we're trying to build this community for teachers working in this space. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a Twitter account where we're connecting people and talking to people and problem solving and dreaming together and all of those things. And that's at Procreate EDU on Twitter. And then one of the other things is providing support for them as they learn in a one-on-one sense. So we have inbox, it's education@procreate.art, and we help people go through the process of thinking about how they might purchase Procreate for their school. How do we do the kind of logistical part of rolling it
I
out onto
know that's what
iPads?
a lot
Because
of
that
teachers are
can
worried
be
about. Like, yeah.
right, it can be so overwhelming. So we're here to help with that part of it too. And then here to help answer questions along the way and give ideas and problem solve in a one-on-one sense. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a few moving pieces, but we're here to help. So if you have any questions, if people listening going like, I'm not really sure if it's for me or if it can do this or if my school will say yes, like we're here to help and we're sitting ready. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I can vouch for that too. Just anytime, I have questions about anything, you all have been so incredibly helpful and responsive, and that has been wonderful. So I appreciate that
thanks,
a
Tim.
lot. So, and then I guess, it's probably about time for us to go here. But before we do you have anything else you want to share? Anything else that you think people should know?
I think just on that like technical piece, I was talking about rolling out iPads. It tends to be a little bit boring for for us artists to want to talk about, but I'll just touch on
Yeah.
two really important things that
Yeah.
will
Go
help
ahead.
people if they're talking to their like their IT teams or their district admin and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
particularly for folks in the US. Two things. The first is that Procreate is a one-time single purchase. It's not a subscription model. So if you buy it through Apple School Manager, which is a program your school can enroll in, has no cost, you can get a 50% discount when you buy a class set, which is 20 or more licenses. My
Like
heart races.
pay for 10 and get 20.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's it. Yeah. So it ends up being $4.99 USD a license, and I really
Okay.
would love people to know that discount is there, ready for them if they want to
Yeah.
use Procreate, and that there are a lot of great advantages for going through Apple School Manager in that your school will own the licenses. So if you pop them out onto students' iPads that are managed at the end of the year or if their time studying with you, they don't need Procreate anymore, you can bring them back and you can put them out on another class set of iPads.
Okay.
So they
Yeah.
belong to the school. So that's a really,
Okay.
really helpful tool. And shoot me an email if you want to learn more about that. The second really, because we could go on about device management for a while. The other really important thing, particularly for our friends in the US, is that Procreate doesn't collect any data from users of any kind. And I know this is a question we get all the time because of the changing legislation in the US, but it's something that we're really passionate about, is that student data is not for sale. It's a way in which we're different to other software in the education space. And it's a really privilege to be one of the leaders on this. I know that a lot of people have a lot of paperwork to do when we start thinking about bringing new software into a school. So you can find our privacy policy on the App Store. There's a link to it there, and you can see that we don't collect any student data. So hopefully that will kind of lessen the worries of anyone thinking about going through that paperwork process too.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, LJ, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It has been wonderful having this conversation, and hopefully we can get a few more people interested in what they can do with Procreate. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. We've been listening to the podcast for a long time, so it's so exciting to be here. And like I said, we're here to help. So if anyone wants a hand, just reach out.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Thank you to LJ for answering my questions, which also happened to be a lot of the questions that came in during and after the conference. So I hope we were able to give you a little bit more insight about Procreate, everything it can do, and whether it might work for you and for your students. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education University with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. We will be back next week with our next episode about what new teachers need to know. And this time it's going to be about classroom management. So if you have any classroom management questions or need any advice, whether you're a new teacher or not, I would love to hear from you. So either email me, Timothy Bogatz at theartofeducation.edu, or find me on Twitter and send me a DM, and we will pull some of those questions for our episode next week. Thanks for listening.